All right. Giving thanks and praise for another day of life. I pray everybody is doing well. I know this is usually not my timing, but I realized I thought I said I was going to come afterwards tonight and read this. So, for the sake of time and for getting through this before I get on to other things, let me just go ahead and continue with chapter 8. Like, I'm trying to stick to my commitments. Right? So let's continue. So far she's on her way back. She is going back to New York. She's leaving California. She's still on drugs. She got on drugs by trying to take her baby out while the baby was in vitro. She started on crack trying to kill the baby because she got impregnated by some guy named Hassan from jail. And now my table is shaking here. And now she's addicted to crack. Tupac is on the road. Her daughter is back in New York, and she is on her way back to New York. So that's where we're picking up from. So Afeni recovery is crucial to her story. When did this table? Hold on one second, peoples. Hold on. Yeah, okay. So Afeni's recovery is crucial to her story. In fact, I think it's the only reason she ever wanted to write the book. I think I read that part, so I'm just recapping. Her road to recovery begins in the Port Authority that Christmas Eve in 1990. She has 5 more months of smoking crack in her sister's apartment bathroom, 5 more months of sitting on the toilet and blowing it out the window, 5 more months of sucking on the pipe with her own nephew Scott until she finds AA, or I should say AA finds her. It was the 20th anniversary of the New York 21 acquittal. It was the weekend preceding my 12th, which is my sober date. I didn't want to go, but Ali Bey, who was one of the 21, and his wife, she just wore me out. Where am I? So it's the 20th anniversary. So that has to be 1990. She's one of those kind of women that just talk you to death until you gave in. She came and picked me up from Glow and brought me out to Connecticut. Afeni chuckles to herself and remembers how Sue's persistence got her to the anniversary. Why didn't you want to go to the anniversary? I asked. You just rather stay holed up in Glow's place getting high? Afeni explains. People knew me to be arrogant and disdainful, and basically that's what she was. So she's aware, and I think that's one of Queen T. What's going on? That's the Daruba, the elder who's still alive. Him knowing her, this is his perspective on her personality. She wasn't, this warm, fuzzy, loving character, right? So she says that people knew her to be arrogant and disdainful, and basically that's what she was. Blamed everybody for her problems. She held on to that anger and believed that stuff. She did everything on her own. She's bad and blink, y'all. That's where she was, and that's how she felt about the Panthers. But you went? Yeah, she went because of Blink and Sue. She did everything. She picked her up, drove her to Connecticut, put her up in her house. She woke up the next day to the smell of hot coffee. Then she says she saw their daughter, Tanya, walk by the bedroom. She hadn't seen Tanya since she was a teenager. And she looked so good. She was so happy to see this girl. Tanya had been a child when her father got arrested. At 16, she had the metal of a cop's gun shoved into her face just because she lived in the same place as her dad. She was so happy to see her looking strong and secure. This girl caught hell in her life. She had been on crack and alcohol. She had been abused, lost 2 of her children. She's telling you hell. And here she was standing before her, looking so good and peaceful. She remembers saying to her, "It's good to see you. Where are you going this time of morning?" She says, "Oh, I'm going to a meeting. You want to go?" She said, "Well, yeah," because she didn't want to stay there listening to Sue all day. And that's how she got to her first meeting. And she didn't know where she was going. She didn't fall on her knees and cry help. She just went with Tanya. She was like an angel for you, I say. Afeni smiles. God looked down upon She says her stupid, simple behind, and it was literally his grace that saved her because she was too prideful to ask for help, basically. So it was this woman, this now woman, just inviting her. She probably knew, or they probably knew, that's probably why her mother pushed. There was probably information floating around of the position that she was in, and the mother pushed her to come. That's probably why the mother pushed her. It turned out that the meeting I was going to, of course, an AA meeting, a recovery meeting at the hospital. She listened with her notepad open and took notes on all they were saying. They were talking about alcoholism, saying addiction was a disease. That's what the subject was. And they defined the disease and the characteristics of disease. That was the first time she heard that. She thought of, oh, okay, let me see what this is. It was actually amazing to her. She mean the people in there and how they were talking. This one girl had so much trouble in her life. She had been abused as a child and ran away. She was homeless and had been raped. She went to that meeting. Then we went to the house of somebody who was in recovery and sat around and just talked. This woman just opened her house to us. This was all a new experience for her. She's looking at people. She says, I think it's very nice and that these people are normal people who used to use drugs. They don't look like me, she says. They got shoes on, nice stuff on. They're happy. This is very interesting. Then that night, they went to another meeting, and it was at that meeting, she says, I frowned my brow. In the same day? Oh, yes, girl. It took her 3 meetings a day just to get a clue. First of all, she had to realize that she was like these people because she walked in thinking she was different. She was smarter, for one, and looked very different. She said, I had my hair shaved off like Tupac did. So she was bald-headed. She had on an orange dress, and really, she looked real different. Oh, like Harry Krishna, she chants mocking Harry Krishna's song. Nah, more like really weird, off of an Isaac Hayes album or something, because she had on earrings too and the nose ring. So anyway, in that meeting, the group sat in a semicircle. There was an inside circle and an outside circle. It was full, packed full, and there were about 5 other Black people. That was nice to see. She listened to what they had to say because she thought maybe they would understand what was going on with her. Well, that they started the meeting by saying, my name is so-and-so, and that they're an addict. The topic for tonight is whatever it was. They went around the room and you said your clean date and that you're an addict. Then you talk on the topic for a minute. By the time it got to her, she didn't say nothing. My name is Afeni and I'm just here. But by the time the meeting was over, she knew she wasn't just here. She was an addict. She felt like all of those people were in her head and knew her secrets. Every time one of them talked, they talked about her, described her very special experiences, her feelings, her thoughts, everything. Afeni glows right now as she remembers recovery. She reminds me of the Ingrid Bergam as Joan of Arc, basking in the light of her faith in God. In the lift of her cheekbone, she sees happiness, a happiness that had not lived in the tales of her past. This moment of recovery, of finding an answer, is transforming experience for Afeni. Afeni, who believes in God and grew up in a sanctified church, found her faith in AA. I don't remember her growing up in the church in the world. I don't remember that part, but let me continue. I thought they had a big secret, though. I heard them say get a sponsor. So I wanted to get one because a sponsor would tell her the secret. She didn't know blink about what a sponsor should do or what that relationship was all about. She just thought they had held the secret. The first sponsor she got didn't choose very well. She just chose somebody that was pretty, who was young and vibrant, looked like she had it going on. But she was not right. In fact, she ended up having a relationship with her nephew, who was clean only 3 weeks. So did they start going to the meetings in Connecticut, or did she start going to the meetings in... I have to tighten the leg on this thing. Hold up. I thought in recovery, you're not supposed to be with anybody for a year. That was one fact I knew from friends of mine who couldn't abstain. Yes, and my nephew's sponsor was telling him the same. She says, no relationships, no relationships. It was a mess. But she went to a meeting that night and stood up and said, I fired my sponsor. The person that I chose was not helping me. Nobody said anything to me right then. They don't stop a meeting for anything. But at the end of the meeting, people came up to her, people who had been recovered for a long time, and they knew that she was desperate. When they see somebody new come into the room, they can feel that person really wants to be sober, and they knew she wanted it. People were helpful to her that night. They gave her names of eligible sponsors. Everybody that gave her the names gave her the same 3 names. During the break, she went to the first woman that she recognized on the paper. It was Marion H., and asked if she would please be her sponsor. She asked her a few questions, and she started on her recovery. She started to learn the tools of recovery, and through her, she was tough. She had lived a life, had been in the service, in the Navy, and an aerial photographer. She had lived in daring life, not a tuba garden all her life, and she never let her BS her. Well, that's what you needed. Who else would have listened? You have listened to? No, she was the one, because literally she knew something had to change all the way inside of her, not superficially. She didn't know how she was going to do it. She didn't think she could do it. She said she always thought that this magical cure, she always thought that there was something at a certain point they would give her. She kept hearing the words and phrases like what? Like, let's go, or a higher power, steps and inventory, day at a time, let God remove. She rattles off the catchphrases with ease. One thing she was anxious to do was the 4th step, your personal inventory. She wanted to do that stuff and get it over with. Why? A lot of this program sounds like pure hell to her, to me. That's what I think Jasmine is saying, because she has seen a lot of people go out because they hadn't done the 4th step. She saw a lot of people come in and they would be so cute sitting in the center aisle. Then they'll go out and use drugs and try to come back again, all over the 4th step. What is inventory? With your 4th step, you write down all the things that you thought you'd take to your grave, and you share these things with your sponsor. Everything, resentment, mistakes, all of it. She couldn't wait to take those things off her chest. She couldn't wait to be free. And that's also probably what her one-time story was as well, bringing that one-time story to the conversation, which was trying to get through that 4th step. Let's see here. What kind of things? Things that you did wrong, bad things? I'm thinking like this is some type of Catholic confession. Telling your worst stuff to someone so that you can be at peace. She remembered confessing to her mom every night before she could go to sleep. She said she was 6 then, already taking inventory. Though as life went on, she learned to keep things in, especially bad things. Why do you have to do this? I asked Afeni. Why do you have to tell your sponsor? Because the thing that really drives a behavior is the secrets, the little things that are hiding inside. And that's a fact. Going through Solonomics and just going over years and years of healing journey is the things that you can't speak or don't speak. That is what is informing your behavior. That's what's manifesting the things that you refuse to address. We always have to do things in order to keep them hidden. Then you have layers and layers and layers of stuff on it, and it just keeps you sick. That's true. It's, again, healing is like an onion. Even like living is like an onion, each layer. And then so when you're peeling the onion, you're peeling it layer by layer. She says, I listen to them talk about secrets and how keeping secrets make you sick inside. The basic thing in the 4th step is that you tell all that stuff. But the most important thing that you must do is that one thing that you're holding on to that you promised you wouldn't tell no one. That's the one thing you have to tell. She said she was afraid she wasn't going to be able to rigorously honest, but she did it like she was told. She did it in 2 days, in 2 sittings. She says her sponsor suggested that she go in the room, that she take into the room all liquids that she wanted to consume during an 8-hour period, any snacks or food she wanted to have. She needed to unplug the phone, needed not to answer the door, needed to do nothing but write on a piece of paper under a heading, hidden resentments. Sounds like she's doing what you do when you're about to write a book. Okay. Where am I? She said, I needed to go back as far as I could remember. Start with the first resentment that could remember as a child. She went back and did her resentments for those hours. The next day, she did the thing with her faults, things that she had done to other people. She put on the paper and folded it up like she was asked to, and had to keep the paper and hold on to it till she made an appointment for us to do the 5th step. The 5th step, she took her to the park. She brought a picnic basket and sat on a blanket and opened up the paper, and she went over everything on the paper. She didn't ask her to elaborate or anything. She wrote down on another paper categories, about 7. Under each one, she was making markings. By the time she got to the end, to the last, she asked me if she had any issues around sexuality. She said she didn't think so. if that's what Afeni's saying, and told her experience and stuff like that. Then she found out that what those 7 categories were. The 7 deadly sins, I interject. Gluttony, soft. I go through the gruesome murders in her head. Greed, pride. I go through the sins she remembers. Greed and pride. That's the one that got her, Afeni explains. She got confused when her sponsor told her that her greatest defects of character had been pride and anger. Well, we kind of seen that in the book. She said she realized she didn't understand what pride was. She thought that it was good. She had lived her life being proud and thinking that pride was the best thing in the world for her to be. And there she was telling her that pride was kicking her. It said, pride go before a fall, lady. I thought she said she grew up in a church. Pride go before a fall. Let's go. Where were we? And then she was telling her that pride was kicking her butt, pride and anger. Anger, she understood. I knew that's how she went into the party, and that was really what was driving her. She says her first year clean and sober, her sponsor wrote her a card. She never forget. Of course, she thought she had done it. Everybody loved her, and she was Miss Blinking Recovery now. Her sponsor spent a whole page on a card talking about how she's in danger of pride again. I couldn't get it. In fact, she thought that she was really being a little over familiar, She said she thought that she was really her last hurdle to deal with, her pride. But she dealt with that when she had to deal with her children. Having to deal with children in recovery is what brought humility. How did they act when they saw that you were committed? She said her daughter was very, very supportive outwardly, and that she's a sweet person and she's a girl. She was very supportive. Tupac was supportive too. They both were. After she had been there for about 90 days, Tupac wrote a letter this thick and told her how he had felt and that he couldn't be that excited because he didn't know whether this was real or not, though he hoped it was. How she hurt him and abandoned them. And it was not a hate letter. It was a loving, honest, truth letter, but she was devastated. Do you think you still have it? I asked. What? She asked. Tupac's letter. I think so. Afeni gets up and goes to the back corner of her bedroom. She hopes she has the letter. So much of her material memories are long gone from all her moving around, pictures, poems, journals. So now she stores her memories in her head. In fact, other people have more pictures of Afeni than she has of herself. Maybe that's the Dear Mama. Maybe he actually puts it in a song. Tupac must have known his mother travels light because he gave his own writings and poems to Layla, that's the name of the lady, Steinberg, from safekeeping. And it's a good thing because what Afeni has lost in time, Tupac had recorded in prose. This poem is from The Rose That Grew from Concrete, a collection of Tupac's poetry. When your hero falls. And he under it he has my hero, my mother. When your hero falls from grace, all fairy tales are uncovered, myths exposed, and pain magnified, the greatest pain discovered. You taught me to be strong, but I'm confused to see you so weak. You said never to give up, and it hurts to see you welcome defeat. When your hero falls, so do the stars, and so does the perception of tomorrow. Without your hero, there is only him alone to deal with his sorrow. Your heart ceases to work. And your hero is not happy at all. What are you expected to do when your only hero falls? I'm sure the letter she received from him in rehab was reflective of this poem. I can't find a letter Afeni returns from her closet, but I remember how it affected me. I went to my sponsor with the letter because I was messed up over it. That's when she taught me humility. She was so devastated, and she helped her. She helped her because she told her that the only reason that she was devastated was because her pride was hurt. Like, how could you be devastated, lady? You wholly abandoned the children. But sometimes the truth, I'm like, she's devastated. I thought she knew the pain she had caused them. This is what we should do. She made her see when it was her pride getting in the way of doing the right thing. It was very hard, but she did that for me. She says, I remember seeing this guy Franklin in the program. Let me drink a little water here. So there she is, knowing that, and how Afeni stayed getting dudes. I thought they was like, it's hard out here and don't nobody want no black women, but Afeni stayed pulling dudes. How is that possible? So she's not supposed to be seeing nobody, but she over here seeing Franklin. At least Franklin got a name. Afeni, you're not supposed to do that. Child, she knows, she laughs. So listen to what happened. She found out that he was blinking somebody that she did she was sponsoring. He had he had sex with somebody or tried to have sex, but she wouldn't. She came back and told me. She says, I went to my sponsor and you know what she told me? Are you married to him? I can't. So the sponsor told her you're single until you're married. Oh, help. She came back. Okay, where am I? I went to my sponsor. Wait, hold on. Are you married to him? I said no. She said, then it's none of your business who he's laying with. Dang, I say she's cold. She was right. But of course, I didn't get that at the time. She said she looked at her like she was nuts. This bleeds out of her blinking mind. What the blink is she talking about? You know, but she was right. And the thing is, that woman never lied to me. She loved me as a human being coming off of drugs. She had love for her and real concern. So she could never dismiss what she was saying, even though she wanted to so bad. That's the kind of stuff that she would do for her. And that was good because when she left there and ended up having to deal with her son and daughter about life, what happened, she had to listen to her children tell her that what they experienced, and she couldn't say nothing. She had to listen, and she did. She had been taught her place. That woman taught her place really well. If she hadn't done that, she would not have been able to face her children and hear their pain. How does a mother reconcile within herself having caused that much pain for her children? Do you forgive yourself, Afeni? I wonder if she will always be guilt ridden. She thinks a minute before she answers. I know it won't be a simple yes or no response. She says she feels sorry for people who are not addicts or alcoholics because doing those steps changed her life. You don't gotta be an addict to do the steps. But okay. She learned lessons about how to live from that program. Afeni reaches for the blue AA book that is always nearby. She reads for a minute and forgets she's there. She turns the book over on her lap and removes her glasses. She leans into her and says one of the things that she had to admit was that she murdered a child in her stomach and had caused the death of a baby. She couldn't hide behind an abortion or her right to choose or anything. She knows very well that she went into the abortion clinic and caused them to put a needle into her navel and stop the heartbeat of a living human being. She had to ask God to please forgive her for that. That was the worst thing that she had done. And the rest of it, she had to rely on, have faith in this program. She places her hand tenderly over the little blue paperback. This is the program of faith. She had to have faith that if she asked God with a sincere heart, and if she asked that child that was in her belly, she would be forgiven. When she finished the fifth step, her sponsor took that paper that she had written all the stuff on and burnt it so she could release the pain. It's not that she didn't do those things, but she doesn't have to walk away with that from there, with the weight on her. She still practiced this in order to stay healthy and clean. She confessed before the Creator and a witness. First, another human being should bear witness to the fact that you did these because addicts are tricky and could fool out themselves into believing something really didn't occur. On top of that, she must ask for forgiveness. Having done that, she had to have faith that she has done what she could and it's time to learn from her errors. Why is it so important to tell someone? Why in a group with a bunch of strangers? That seems so unnatural, like undressing in public or doing a love scene with which I hate, says Jasmine. She cringed at the thought of such intimate exposure. Is this to humiliate you? Because you have to get out of yourself. You have to learn that your stuff stinks like everybody else. Sharing with other people helps you to get out of your own head. Listening to other people share is the only way you hear the message sometimes. The blue book gives you thinking and living skills. You have to be willing to do each step. The next step is when you are entirely ready to have God remove these character defects inside of yourself. You have to have a desire to have this poison removed from you any way that he chooses to do. The most important thing is to do it. Then you ask him to remove out the shortcomings, and that's it. Then you make a list of all the persons you've harmed. We know who's on the list. Shaida's on the list. She over here making the list. Greetings to those who just joined us. We know Shaida's on the list. Let's can see. Because she brought that up a number of times. Oh, where are we? You need to become willing to make amends to them. Amends is not just saying you're sorry. You have to admit what you've done and acknowledge it. The people that she harmed, she had to do all, and her moms should be on that list too. She had to do all those people and make amends, so she made a list. I groaned. This stuff just gets worse and worse. Why does Jasmine sound like this? Bro, you don't sound like you for the process, bro. This is very important. What do you mean it's getting worse? Don't they know you're sorry? Don't they already know that you feel bad? How are they supposed to know? And you're getting help and trying to fix yourself? Nah, bro. This is not just I'm sorry, kiss and make up, Jasmine. This is about them, her children, her sister, her family, and hearing them and taking responsibility for what you did to to them. When she goes to make amends, she has no control. You're not in charge, she says disdainfully. She says she made an appointment with each person and told them that she had something to talk about. I told them that they didn't have to meet with her. They didn't have to do anything. They may be so pissed off or hurt that they were through with her, and maybe they didn't want to hear her stuff. And she had to deal with that. You can't force anyone. I can't do anything except pray that they will see her or see me, she says. One-on-one, no interruptions. She was required to admit what she did wrong to that person. She could not justify her wrongdoings, could not explain. You have to just listen to their response. How did they respond? I can only imagine Tupac's reaction after having read his poems. I know how deeply hurt he was by Afeni's drug addiction. She says that her sister gave her a hug and her daughter also, but her son had lots of questions. He wanted to go over a few things. She smiles, remembering Tupac and his questions. Afeni, in turn, would probably have nailed her mama the same way had the tables been turned. You know what? The amends to my son weren't the hardest. The hardest was really to my daughter. That's the hardest amends I had to make because she says she abandoned Seth emotionally in puberty. Why did I say puberty? It's late, y'all. Puberty. I'm a woman. I know all the stuff that she went through. She ended up getting pregnant. She was a good girl, and I changed her whole path. She says her behavior changed her whole personality. Tears flow so immediately with this admission. She says she wondered how they got here so fast. She takes responsibility for that. She's not blinking around with that. They got rights, her kids. She did some damage, but she don't live in the damage. She made the amends. She says her sponsor told her to try the best amend she could make, a living amends, by living a life that doesn't have those things in it. That's what she really tried to do. That's the only thing her family could believe and what they see. The best thing about when Tupac died, that sounds a weird statement, but okay, is that he had 5.5 years of his mother being healthier than he was before she was using, and they had a much healthier relationship. When Tupac was laid up in New York, it seemed to me that he was still making you pay, I tell Afeni. He liked having Afeni do for him, cook for him, wait on him. It was like he was saying, be my mommy. He had always made me pay. He had a right, she says. I don't have a right. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I don't get to have that. I gave that up, she says. She accepts that. That's how she works on her pride and humility. That ain't nothing. You know what I mean? That's her weight, and she had to carry it. The only issue is how to carry it and how she does it. If she says, if I'm really recovered, then she won't be defeated by it and keep moving forward or toward a better life. She tried to be there for other people, try to help instead of tear down. She knows the mistakes are possible, but dignity is possible after those mistakes. I wonder if she went back to Shaida too. I don't know where Shaida is, but it's so dark on the porch. I can only see Afeni's face by the glow of her cigarette. She said if she hadn't used crack, she would probably still be using drugs because what crack does is eliminate your ability to be social. Crack is all about crack. Crack is whack. Nothing else. You gotta get more crack. Crack is about you. Smoke, and you need to smoke some more. It never ends. You need to always have more. That's all it's about. That's why they call them crack fiends. She says, do you remember losing your grip on yourself, or do you just remember realizing you had no grip? She says she remembers realizing she had no grip. That's what Tupac didn't forgive her for the longest time, because he asked her if she was doing drugs, and she told him that she was smoking but had it under control. She told him that there was no problem, and her son believed her. And that's why he didn't forgive her, because she lied. That's not the only thing she lied about. But basically, that's what it was for him. He never got past that she lied about having it under control. It didn't even get to nothing else but that. And he's not used to you lying. How are we back here again? I'm glad she was able to go through the process. I know I sound a little cynical because this is a lot, but I'm glad she was able to come to certain realizations. But that was not the only thing she was lying about, okay? She says, one thing the Shakurs need as a family is the truth. The three of them, Afeni and her kids, are profoundly betrayed by lies. And that's probably, even though she's getting clean, by the time in 94, the father, Billy Garland, comes, that's another lie that he was betrayed by. So there's the chances are what they're saying about him not being on necessary full good terms could be true, because that would be the next lie. By this dude you told me was dead shows up by the bedside. It says that's what she means. Lying was not their reality. Afeni agrees. So much so that the lie is what ultimately did it for him. He couldn't get over it. But didn't you think you had it under control? Yo, that's the word I was looking for the other day. Why is Jasmine Guy acting like an enabler, bro? Why is she acting? I know you're trying to be sweet and all, but you acting like an enabler right now. Sorry. But didn't you think you had it under control? I mean, is it really lying? Oh, Father, help me. If you think you're telling the truth, yes, it's lying, bro. Afeni is quiet again. She answers, you couldn't be a sponsor because you would just help the person to just not do what they're supposed to do. She answers her solely, like, I'm too young to fully understand. Addicts lie. That's what they do. They keep secrets and they lie. That's why she doesn't even play with some stuff. She don't keep secrets because she can't afford them. Somebody's got to know what's going on with her at all times. Quite frankly, she says, they all think that the worst things are the most horrible, that we all have them, and knowing that frees her from secrets and keeping and getting sick again. The ugliest thing, the worst feeling, she has to share it with somebody, and she doesn't lie. Afeni begins, but I look out into the black night. Even the floodlights illuminating the wood pines seem to fade. She says when she lost her son, she had to remember she had a daughter and grandchildren, and she had a responsibility to her son to stay clean and live up to her duties. And her duties did not end when Tupac died. She looked at her and drags on her Newport. A smile creeps across her eyes as she pulls on the menthol. You and Jada helped her. She says, help me with that. She'll never forget that conversation. She says she remembers the conversation. She remembers that it was a painful day. It was Sunday, 2 days after Tupac died. He died Friday, September the 13th. Afeni had him cremated that Saturday morning. That was very quick. And returned to Los Angeles with his ashes that night. That's interesting because there's a dude on internet saying that he's the one who drove back to California with the ashes from what a place name? Las Vegas. So, I was with the family when Afeni got there. They all looked like zombies, and I occupied Afeni's little nieces, Imani, while they cried. Jada Pinkett Smith, Tupac's old and trusted friend, met her Sunday morning at her house. The mission was to go to Afeni, pick her up from Westwood condominium, take her away from the family, and warn her of what lay ahead. She remembers the conversation. The vultures are coming to get you, Afeni. I look into her puffy eyes as if she could really hear us. You need to get in there, find out what Tupac owned, what Pac had. You need some lawyers, Jada laid it out. You need accountants, I said firmly. And she says, and we can help you. We can help you with all of that, Jada reassures. But you got to be ready because this ain't no joke. We all know how Pac kept his business, his money, his agreements. You need to understand everything Pac owned, everything he created. I said to Afeni, they're going to come after you like you're the poor little widow lady. They don't know. Blink, Jada confronts Afeni. You don't know about this production company. You don't know about his finances. You don't know about Death Row or Suge Knight or what kind of agreements he had on the table. Afeni was stunned and broken like a one-winged bird. We held her close that day and cried. We prayed for her and asked God to give her the strength to stand up for Tupac. Now, as Afeni remembers that conversation, I wonder why she smiles. Oopsie. At such a painful day when I can remember how much she hurt. If you and Jada hadn't done that on that day, that would have been it, she says with pride. And do you know, I heard you, she says, if you had not been there that hard on her that day, it would have been gone. All of it would have been gone. And now they're fighting for it right now. His sister is having to go to court for his estate now. So they're still fighting. Little did I know at that moment, September 15th, 1996, that Afeni would spend the next 7 years fighting to keep Tupac's work alive and in the family. And that is the end of chapter 8. And we are up to chapter 9. I think there's an article. Let me see here. To show you that was 96. And we are in 2023 and they're still fighting. So to see that people do things, people do things and are they create things in this world, and then people still don't want them to have rights to the things they have done and created. That's wild and crazy, right? Let me see here. When he just got the Hall of Fame or the star or whatever that is, it was his sister who had to accept it. So this is back in 2022. A lawsuit filed Monday in Los Angeles. His sister, Sekiwa Shakur, Tupac's sister and the daughter of Shakur's mother, Afeni, and the Tupac Foundation accused Tommy Whaley, who has been the executive of Tupac's estate since Afeni's death, of taking $5.5 million. So, and this is in Rolling Stone. So they're asking for an estate audit, and they're still fighting. They're still fighting. She said unreasonably enriched himself with $5.5 million embezzled from the rapper's estate. Let's see here. Let's see. It says let's see. The past 5 years from Amaru Entertainment, a record label founded by Afeni and now managed by Wally, that is charged with Tupac's classic LPs and posthumous albums. He's already received. Can we move here? I'm talking about I ran out of free articles. Bro, this is just the first article I'm reading here. He received more than 5.5 that he has paid himself in the last 5 years. He paid himself $1 million a year. He has effectively embezzled millions of dollars for his own benefit, well in excess of what should be reasonably necessary to retain a properly qualified third person to perform such services. As a result, Whaley has unreasonably enriched himself at the expense of the beneficiaries and in bad faith by taking excessive compensation in a position from which he should properly be barred based on inherent and conflict of interest. Tupac left his estate to Afeni as the sole beneficiary upon his shooting death in 1996, when Afeni died in 2016. Well, this is where Billy pops up. But the next chapter is going to be about Billy, whatever, and her writing that he was dead on the papers, but because he didn't have any children, his mother gets the estate. Let's see here. When Afeni died in 2016, all of her tangible property was left to Sekiwa, who argued in the new lawsuit should include the items that Afeni inherited from Tupac. However, according to Sekiwa, the Whaley-run estate is withholding those items for her for investment purposes, quote unquote. Among those items are Tupac's cars, a multitude of plaques and awards, including but not limited to so-called golden records, Tupac's pinballs and games, Tupac's renowned jewelry, his artwork, sculptures, items of clothing, shoes, accessories, and furniture taken from his home upon his demise. The lawsuit states. The lawsuit also cites numerous instances of alleged malfeasance, including allowing the sale of an estate-owned houseboat to benefit one of its trustees instead of the trust itself. Let's jump down here. Basically, the dude is using the people them stuff as his own little piggy bank. It says that Tom Whaley was a friend and confidant of Tupac and his mother, Afeni, since signing Tupac to his first major record deal in the 90s and hoping to arrange the funds to bail him out of jail. King said after Tupac passed away, Afeni requested Tom's help with the job of managing. He must figure there ain't nobody around now. Assets. Afeni had inherited a task he performed without charge for many years. Oh, he said he want his back pay? In 2015, at Afeni's request, Tom became the manager of Amaru, the company Afeni had established to protect and exploit all Tupac assets on normal and typical terms. It says here, Tom became the current trustee after Afeni passed away, but has never taken any trustee fees, even though his workload has increased well beyond what his management of Amaru required. So he said he paying himself? I can't. So there goes that story. Interesting, and more interesting. And tomorrow, not tomorrow, what's tomorrow? Sunday? Okay, I'll just put it up on here. We're going to come read the next follow-up of Billy Garland. Let me just give you guys a little opener here. This is the lead up to all of the Billy Garland interviews. Ready? The first in line to siphon Tupac's money was Billy Garland, also known as the Sperm Donor. Why, it's time for me to go to my bed. Do I call him Domer, fam? The sperm donor, the father Tupac had never known. That opening line right there, though. Not the opening line. Remember, we just heard that Afeni doesn't lie, and the family doesn't lie, and so it's interesting that Jasmine internalizes a lot of Afeni's experience, but by doing so, there becomes like this implicit bias in the storyline, because if he didn't lie and he didn't know that the man was there, and we're 9 chapters in and we're just hearing the name Billy Garland. But this whole time, besides when we talked about your when you were first born, we're talking about Tupac, and your son and your experience. So this is the first time in 9 chapters we're hearing the actual name. So that that right there, question. But let me know your thoughts, peoples. I usually don't come through so late, but it is what it is at this point. I am going to. If you have anything to say, feel free to do so. I'll take a little swig here. Take a little swig. We're almost done the book, guys. I've learned quite a bit. I was reading it on my own. I said, you know what? I'm going to come and read it, even though it's going to take a little more effort on my behalf. I'll come and read it to the peoples, put this on record, because even though this was written in 2006, a lot of this information is not floating around. We're getting more rapper information than his own mama about what happened. I did see his cousin the other day drop a video. Oh, that's what I wanted to do. Drop a video on the Art of Dialogue about why his name was Crooks. And his cousin confirmed something that I saw. And I was like, oh, and I actually had a picture of the lady that she surnamed, gave him the surname, was a woman that she had met. And according to the cousin, they were really good friends. But the lady, what was her name? He called her Crooks. She gave that name, and she gave the name for Carol Crooks. She gave the name for her sister's married name, which is Lashane, and then this Crooks name, which is this lady. And I thought that's where she had gotten this name from. Let me show you the lady that when she first had the baby, I had gotten this research, but it fell through the cracks, people. It fell through the cracks. When she first had Tupac, she gave Tupac the surname of this lady right here. Right? Why is the name of this published from New York City, 1975 to 1979, Dyke A. Quarterly, fam? The name of the woman was Carol Crooks. Dykes behind bars by women against prison. What in all of creation? And this is the woman right here. Carol Crooks. And that's her name down here. So when she named him Parish Lysay Crooks, she gave him the name of this lady. She said she was trying to lay low from the FBI order, CIA, and then she later changes his name. But and you could see that they had some type of association, because it says here. Let me make it bigger. Let me see if you can see. Interesting history here, peoples. It says here. All right. And history of the Bedford struggle. So here it is. This is when she was working with the legal services. In November of 73, so he's like 2, Jan Smith and Afeni of the South Bronx Legal Services helped the Bedford Women Organization, a day of solidarity with the families and friends of women incarcerated in Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, the only women's prison in the state of New York. On February 3rd, 1974, Carol Crooks, one of the Black women who devoted tremendous energy to the November Solidarity Day, requested to be seen by a nurse. It was 8 a.m. So this was a woman she met in jail. You can read more about this here. The people of the state of New York versus Carol Crooks. So this is the woman, according to the cousin. And Crooksy, see he right down here, locked up all the Bedford women so that none of them could help Crooksy. And it's interesting that is what that is what the cousin called her. The cousin is saying that they were good friends, and that she helped her when she came out of jail, and that she gave the child, which is Tupac, this woman's last name. Very interesting stuff. Okay, hold on. What in the world? So that's that right there, peoples. I would play it, but see, why was he named Parish Lashane Crooks? And that's the last name that she gave him from the woman. Let's see what somebody else say. And it is also on the internet. So that's very interesting stuff, peoples. Why wouldn't it have been given the name Shakur, Garland, or Williams? Somebody asks. All right, peoples. So there we go. That's that. Thank everybody for tuning in. That's a little tidbit I said, let me put up in there. Everybody have a blessed night, and we'll be back another time to find out about that Billy Garland all over the internet trying to siphon Tupac's money. According to Billy, it was a lawyer who came to him and told him that he had a right to the estate, okay? And told him that on the paperwork, on the probate paperwork, it said he was dead. So somewhere along the line, Afeni still wasn't telling the full truth. Whether she knew where, she knew where he was because he came to the hospital. He came to the hospital, and he was there in Vegas, so she knew he wasn't dead. We'll talk about that next chapter. All right. Everybody have a blessed day. One.